Welcome to another episode of Mike Up with Dane. I am your host, Representative Dane Watchero of the 116th Legislative District. Today we're going to talk about a very important topic for our outdoorsmen, our sportsmen, and that is chronic waste disease. And we have a special guest with us today, Jeannine. Hi, how you doing today?
I'm well. How are you?
Very good. I thank you so very much for joining us today. Could you tell me a little bit about yourself and your background and who you work for?
Sure. I am a wildlife biologist with the Pennsylvania Game Commission. I have been working with deer and chronic wasting disease for a very, very long time now. I actually started in Minnesota very long time ago, and came to the Game Commission in 2004. So it's been a while.
Yeah, so you've been here in Pennsylvania for quite some time. Deer disease and public concern, understanding chronic wasting disease is very important. So if you don't mind, I'm going to jump in. I have some questions prepared I want to ask you, and I'm sure you're going to be able to handle this. You've been around quite some time. So what is CWD? Let's just get that out there first, because there's so many misconceptions on what CWD really is.
Sure. It's a fatal neurological disease. So while the name of it says chronic wasting disease, it is actually what happens to the animal as the disease progresses. It loses body condition, but it is actually a neurological disease. So it affects the brain. It is similar to, or in the same family of diseases as mad cow disease, which people may have heard of. It is caused not by a bacteria, not by a virus, not by any of those things, but it's actually caused by a misshaped protein that attacks neurons in the brain.
Oh, I understand. Okay. How is CWD transmitted among deer, and what makes it challenging to control, especially in the wilderness, the population of deer?
Chronic wasting disease actually is transmitted one of two ways. It's usually by, or one way is from deer to deer contact. You know, if anybody looks outside and sees deer, they're very social animals. There's mutual grooming, and things like that. And these infectious prions are shed in urine, saliva, feces, things like that. So when they're grooming, they can be exposed that way. Or because they are being shed in urine, saliva, and feces, they can actually contaminate the environment, and animals can pick it up through exposure in the environment. So those are the two ways, and it is, like I said, it's contagious. Unlike, those other diseases like mad cow, it is contagious from one animal to another and through the environment, and that's what makes this disease a little bit different.
Or,
Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. No, go ahead, please.
No, I was going to say, because deer are free roaming, they are not contained in any way. They go where they want, when they want. And so addressing a disease in these populations is difficult because there is no control like you would have in a domestic animal or something like that.
Okay. Are we seeing this spread more rapidly now than we did previously in past years?
I don't know if we're seeing it spread more rapidly. The disease is going to spread naturally just by way of deer movements because, like I said, deer are not contained. But I think the reason we are seeing it pop up in more places more often is because we're actually looking for it. So if you look for something and you look for it well, you might find it. And really, we do want to find it so that we know where it is and we can address it.
Okay, now here's the hard question that everybody asks. What steps is the Pennsylvania Game Commission taking to monitor, to manage CWD in both wild and captive deer populations? Please go ahead. And sorry for the hard question, but that's one question we're always being asked. So if you could please go ahead and address that.
Absolutely. It's a question that everybody wants to know. And as you know, the Pennsylvania Game Commission, we are stewards of the natural resources of the Commonwealth, and particularly the wildlife resources. So it's our job to address these things. And surveys have told us that the public sees disease management as one of the Game Commission's most important roles. So, yes, it is very important that we address it. Uh, the unfortunate thing about chronic wasting disease is it is a very sneaky disease. Uh, it takes 18 to 24 months before an infected animal actually looks ill. But all the while, that animal is actually depositing those prions into the environment and exposing other animals that it comes in contact with to these infectious prions. So it can be in an area and we don't even know about it. So that's why surveillance is so important. And that's why we do have a statewide surveillance program. You know, every year we go out during hunting season and we take a random sample across the entire state to test for chronic wasting disease. But in our disease management areas where we have found the disease, there are other things that we do. In particular, we put a ban on feeding because feeding draws animals together in that close contact and it exposes them to the disease. And not just chronic wasting disease, feeding deer in general is just a really bad idea because there's a whole lot of other things that can happen with feeding besides infecting other animals with chronic wasting disease. So that's one thing that we do. The other things we do is we ban the movement of high risk parts. Now, chronic wasting disease, the prions associated with this disease are found throughout the body, but they are concentrated in nervous tissue in the spleen. So the brain, the spinal cord, the spleen, those parts are banned from being removed from the disease management area. So we create disease management areas around areas where we know we have the disease. We ban feeding, we ban the movement of these high risk parts because we don't want hunters unwittingly moving the disease to a new area of the state where it does not exist. So we don't want those high risk parts being placed on the landscape, that area becoming infected, and other deer coming in contact with that. So that's another thing that we do. We also you increase the harvest in that area to reduce deer populations because deer to deer contact is one way that this disease spreads. So we want to keep deer healthy in those areas. So not every deer is infected with CWD, and we want to keep it that way. We do not want other animals being infected. So no feeding, no movement of high-risk parts. We increase hunter harvest. We also, in those areas, the disease management areas, we also test roadkill deer because we have found that when we see the disease spread, our roadkill testing is usually our first sign that the disease is moving beyond the boundary of these disease management areas. So those are some of the things that we do.
All right, great. Well, you answered that hard question. I'm going to throw another one out there if you don't mind. I'm a hunter, and
Yes.
big archery hunter, love to be out in the woods and harvest my deer. Now, with that being said, myself and many constituents within my district, you know, you harvest your deer, you take it to the processor, you spend at a minimal $100 just to get something, your basic cut, up to 200, 250 or more, depending on what kind of processing you want to get done, just to learn that the deer has CWD. So the question that I have to the Game Commission is the Game Commission offering anything or considering any type of rapid testing test sites for processing, anything that you could bring these listeners up to speed of what the Pennsylvania Game Commission is going to be doing.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up because that is another thing. In these disease management areas that have been established, we do offer free testing. If you have seen that we call them head bins, that's what they are. They collect deer heads. They are white. They look like those donation bins for clothing, but instead you put a deer head in it. So hunters can submit their deer's head for free testing. They need to attach their harvest tag, bag it up, and can drop it in there. We will collect it, pull the sample, test it for free, and provide the results. Now, you bring up a good point with regard to test results. It's unfortunate right now. It has to go to a lab to be tested, and it can take up to 10 days to get those test results back, 10 days to 2 weeks. We usually say that, and especially during the gun season when we have that high volume of animals going to the lab. Archery season, it's usually a little bit faster. But as you said, and trust me, this is much faster than it was 15 years ago when we started testing, when it was months before test results came back. So this is a huge improvement. But, you're not leaving your deer outside for 10 days or 2 weeks. So what we tell people is, if you can, to keep that animal, hold it, quarter it, hold it in, refrigeration or freezer till you get those results back before you bring it to the processor and that money is spent. Are we looking for new ways to test? Absolutely, but the research just isn't there yet. And I don't know when that will be. It's probably going to be some time, probably years before we get that rapid test that tells people or hunters the results that they want immediately. We just don't have that capability yet. Science doesn't have that capability yet, but we're certainly working on it.
Okay, I understand. And one of the final questions, if we have a few moments left here, is clarifying misconception and looking ahead. Now, some folks are concerned about reports that the Game Commission and other agencies are out there, and they can call large numbers of deer in our region. I've heard it from my local area where I live. I have not seen anything with my eyes, but I just want to really clarify the misconception, if there is or if it's true. If you could kindly tell our listeners and elaborate on that a little bit, please.
Absolutely. One of the strategies that we use to understand what is going on in the landscape in areas where we either have a high priority or a new detection is to set up what we call containment zones. And these containment zones, basically, if you put a pin on a map of where we found that positive animal and draw a 1-mile circle around that, we work with landowners within that circle to increase harvest in the immediate area of that positive. Now, because of the timing of the Carbon and Luzerne County positives that we found, it was already after hunting season. So what we do in these containment zones is normally we would work with landowners to increase that harvest, and after hunting season, we would approach those landowners and ask them if they would allow us to remove more deer for testing in that area. And that's what happened in Carbon and Luzerne County. But like I said, it was unfortunate we didn't have that hunting season to work up to get those extra samples. And this is simply to get an understanding of what is going on in the area. In particular, the animal that tested positive in Carbon County was a clinical suspect, which means that animal looked sick when we found it. That means that animal was infected for at least 18 months. So it had been on the landscape spreading that disease for that long. So it's important that we understand what is going on and remove any animals that are also positive in that area to stop the spread amongst those animals. So yes, animals were removed. We work with USDA Wildlife Services. They are the people that remove wildlife from airports, from urban deer type management settings. We had similar containment zone operations this year in York and Armstrong County, and multiple positives were found with those removals from those areas. As of right now, we haven't found any more positives in Luzerne and Carbon, but we are still looking. I'm I'm almost 100% certain there's definitely more animals that are positive there. We just haven't found them yet.
I have to thank you very much because when I asked for you all to come on the podcast, you're more than willing to come out here and talk about this. So that shows that you're just open. You have an open channel, and I appreciate you all very much for doing that. The last and final thing, we have gone over so many points here, and we addressed it. Is there any public misconceptions that we did not cover that you feel that we should have a conversation about?
Yes, part of it is I think we all have the same goal. We want to keep deer healthy. The Game Commission, sometimes people see us as the villain, but we all want healthy deer populations. They are an integral part of our heritage in this state, and we so want that to persist. We do not want sick animals. We want healthy deer. And it's unfortunate this disease is is not good. It's very like I said, it's very quiet and can lull you into thinking that there's nothing happening or nothing going on. There is nothing further from the truth. I spent a day in Bedford County a couple weeks ago, and we had two deer calls before I even got there at 9 a.m. And if people were to see what this disease does to an animal, they would, it's eye-opening. It would change their minds immediately. We do not want that occurring in any other part of the state. And I know it seems like deer are paying the price for this, but we want to keep those deer healthy, and we want to keep them part of our state, part of our natural heritage.
This episode of Mike Up with Dane, deer disease, public concern, understanding chronic wasting disease. I thank you, Pennsylvania Game Commission, for coming on here, having an open discussion, being honest, being open. I love it, and I can't thank you enough. So, Jeannine, I appreciate you. Anything else you'd like to add before we close?
Yes, if anybody has any questions about chronic wasting disease, they can contact the Game Commission. We have a hotline as well as an email. Just check out our website and you can get that information.
That's great. Thank you so much for being there for our constituents here, especially in the 116th Legislative District. For all of our content, visit my website, repwatchro.com/mypodcast. Thank you.